Good evening. The government's unveiled its plans for two high-speed railway links between Birmingham, Manchester and Leeds. It's the second phase of HS2, the lines that will link London with the Midlands and the North.
Birmingham Chamber of Commerce has welcomed the plans, claiming they could create 250,000 jobs. But already many people are raising environmental concerns, saying they will lose homes and livelihoods, as well as beautiful countryside. Keith Wilkinson reports.
Manchester to Birmingham will be 41 minutes, 47 minutes faster than it is now. High Speed 2 will be an engine for growth for the 21st century, one of the great infrastructure projects of the world.
A promotional video for HS2 Phase 2. We already know of plans for a high-speed railway from London to Birmingham. Now the plan is for extra sections, one from Birmingham to Manchester through Staffordshire, but with no stations in the county. The other from Birmingham travelling right across the East Midlands up to Leeds, with a station on the outskirts of Nottingham at Towton. It's already caused upset among those in the path of the lines. People like this couple waking up this morning to find they had a railway running right through their home. But some councils and business leaders are welcoming the new routes, which will cut journey times. They visited the historic old Curzon Street station today, which will be redeveloped as the Birmingham terminus. But what about the many places that won't be connected by HS2? So there's going to be no station for Staffordshire, no station for Derby or Leicester, and the one for Nottingham is on the outskirts. Some would say it's bypassing them. With me is the Transport Minister. What do you say to those people?
Well, I'd say several things. First thing I'd say is that we need as a country to build the infrastructure for the 21st century, and that'll benefit growth and have a much better connected country.
I think it's vital for Britain if we're going to succeed in the global race. You know, other countries have got high-speed rail networks. We need to have them too. And I think for Britain there's a particular benefit of linking up our major cities with high-speed rail.
In total, 100,000 jobs, some commentators saying 250,000 jobs as a result of the full line. 22,000 of those we know are in the West Midlands. We know it's 1.2 billion onto our local GVA.
We need capacity on the high-speed rail line, we need capacity on local rail and capacity on freight, and by building the new high-speed rail we'll actually get the capacity in all of those particular areas, and there's no other solution.
This is part of the route that will link Birmingham with Nottingham. Many acres of countryside facing the bulldozers. The first phase has already caused an outcry. Phase 2 will spark many more protests. Keith Wilkinson, ITV News.
Well, we've been asking commuters at New Street Station today what the second phase of HS2 will mean for them.
Well, I travel from Leeds to London quite regularly. It would probably save about 45 minutes. I mean, that could be good for me. I would like that.
I think it's a good idea. I know there have been some concerns with the environmental issues, but I'm not too sure how much it's going to affect it.
That's good. Well, I say it's good for me, but I mean, obviously people, if it's going to affect their housing or where they live, then maybe not so good for them.
It's good for me for work, so a lot better for me for work. It's quicker.
So a lot of positive reaction there from people who use the railways regularly, but there is also shock tonight for many who found out that they could lose their homes.
Richard and Julie Williams run a family-owned farm and B&B in Staffordshire, but say the new line risks destroying everything they own and ruining their lives. They've been speaking to John Willett.
This land near Stafford has been farmed by the same family since 1942. But under the HS2 route plans, it will now become part of the new line linking London and Birmingham to the northwest.
Looking at the plan so far, it looks like our new barn conversions are going, with the farmhouse as well, and our daughter and son-in-law's house as well. We've got some older buildings on the right. Maybe they will be staying, but everything else looks like it's going. It's splitting the farm into two land-wise. We're farming 200 acres and it's splitting us basically nearly down the middle.
Richard Williams and his wife Julie also run a B&B from their farmhouse. They only found out it was at risk after looking at the HS2 maps online this morning. And they're angry that the government hasn't contacted them directly.
Basically, it's going to ruin our business as we stand here today. It's absolutely devastating for us. I know for a fact we won't be able to borrow any money against it. Now, basically, we can't do anything, can we? We can't move up forward at all. I mean, it would be nice them to come along here today and say what they're doing, compensation, but that's not going to happen like that, is it?
If the plans announced this morning are approved and do go ahead, then the exact spot here where I'm stood will become a high-speed rail line. But this part of the track won't open until 2032, meaning homeowners and businesses like this face an uncertain future.
We'd like to have carried on doing what we're doing, and we'd like to have been able to pass it on to our children and to our grandchildren. So, those plans now are shattered really, and so we just have to see what lies ahead for us in the next few years.
The route has also disappointed some business leaders in Staffordshire. Stafford and Stoke-on-Trent are connected to the current West Coast main line, but they won't get their own stations on HS2.
The most important thing is where the stations are. We really hope to put a good case to government that we would be able to have a station in North Staffordshire around Stoke area, because that would bring undoubted benefits in terms of increasing land values, creating a whole load of jobs and showing that Staffordshire is open for business. We are meeting government next week. We hope that we will be able to at least put forward a very strong case that there should be a station in North Staffordshire.
So now the plans have been announced, the talking and consultation begins. John Willits, ITV News, Stafford.
Well, although George Osborne has described the rail route as an engine for growth, there's been mixed reaction to the news from business leaders and members of his own party.
Yes, Andrew Bridgen, the MP for North West Leicestershire, believes the plans are fundamentally flawed and says many areas will, in his words, get all of the pain but none of the gain. Rajiv Popat reports.
The mere mention of HS2 and the words speed and controversial spring to mind. Those in favour say it'll heal the north-south divide, but within the Midlands itself, the business community is divided about the route.
It's really important that we have got the very best connectivity with London and the rest of the world, and obviously that in 20 years' time that is going to be high-speed rail.
I have no problem with the concept of a high-speed rail. I think unfortunately the route is the wrong one. The development now goes straight through a opportunity site that we've been working on for the last 2 years, which is due to bring 6,000 new jobs to Leicester and Leicestershire.
Appleby Magna is a sleepy village in Leicestershire. There are plans for the new rail line to pass through here and surrounding areas like Measham and Packington.
It's going to affect people's lives, isn't it, from what we understand, from the noise, from the vibration, etc., especially those that are living fairly close to it.
I don't think that it's going to be beneficial for the amount of money that it's going to cost.
In terms of the need for infrastructure in order for the country to develop and businesses to grow, then I'm all for HS2. If it affects local monuments, then there may be issues for arguments for rerouting.
The Conservative MP for North West Leicestershire, Andrew Bridgen, is furious. He says the scheme is flawed.
I think it's going to be very detrimental to our economic growth. It's going to cause a lot of fear and a lot of paralysis of the planning system unnecessarily.
This is about NIMBYism, isn't it?
It's not about NIMBYism. North West Leicestershire, we already have an airport that's the largest dedicated cargo handler and runs flights in 24 hours a day. We've got a racetrack, we've got the M42, we've got the M1.
Critics of HS2 insist all is not lost. Work is scheduled to begin in 13 years, and in that time 3 general elections will take place, and they say that means that 3 prospective governments could scrap the project altogether. Rajiv Popat, ITV News, Appleby Magna.
Well, HS2 was a project put forward by the last Labour government, and now it's the job of the coalition to push it through. How easy will that be, given the opposition that's already growing along all sections of the route?
Well, we can cross now to our correspondent, Alison McKenzie at Westminster. Alison, how's it being received there?
Well, the big words being used by the government are engine for growth, empowering connectivity. This government says we have to compete on the global economy scale. HS2 Phase 2 will help us towards that, they say. These were the bold words in the Commons today from the Transport Secretary.
Regardless of the nature of the government, when the first trains run in 13 years' time, what matters are the jobs, the rebalancing of the economy and the country's future prosperity. I commend this statement to the House. Yeah.
Pretty quick on their feet were the Conservative MPs, where this line will run straight through their constituency. Lots of anger, lots of concern. We heard from a couple of them who aren't very happy.
This route plunges through rural Britain, rural Staffordshire, and should use existing transport corridors. It blights the environment, homes and lives.
But if HS2 is to bring jobs and prosperity as he desires to the wider West Midlands region, a stop is required on the route in Staffordshire. Can I ask my right honourable friend to take this fully into account?
Well, the government says they'll listen. Labour supportive of HS2 Phase 2. In fact, they want the whole project speeded up. They're worried that the timetable's beginning to slip. This is their spokesperson, Maria Eagle.
We have to remember that with the increase in train passengers that we're seeing over time and the projected increases, our current system just can't take as many passengers as are going to want to use it. The West Coast Main Line south of Birmingham will be full by the mid-2020s. Without building a new line, we would run into serious issues.
Either way, it's some 20 years until Phase 2 is complete, and of course there's still some ongoing legal action challenging the first phase of HS2, still waiting to hear on that. Lots of arguments ahead. This will be a long project in the making.
Alison, thank you for that.
And many of you have been getting in contact with us about HS2 Phase 2, with a number of people questioning the cost. And we'll start with Darren Brown, who got in touch on his mobile and says HS2 is a waste of money. Do the government listen to the public? Also, and Maureen Bott says it's not going to save that much time travelling either. What a waste of our money. Some people are welcoming HS2 though. Richard in Stapleford says it will bring many needed jobs to the Toton site. And Matthew Whitehouse seems keen on the high-speed line. He says the government needs to hurry up and start to build HS2. I, for one, will use it if the price is low. Yes, Roy Jones in Walsall echoes that positive note. It will be good for the Midlands. It will create jobs and give better access across the country. Len Clark also got in touch via Facebook and says this government is supposed to be short of money, yet they come up with this. Thanks very much for all your comments. Well, as well as passing through many Midlands towns and villages, Phase 2 of HS2 will come close to some of the region's rural beauty spots and historical landmarks. Andy Bevan has been gathering opinion from those whose worst fears were confirmed this morning and breaking the news to some who were unaware that their land is now part of the master plan.
You've gobsmacked me, because I've never seen it before.
John Meakin is the fourth generation of his family to run Far Coley Farm at Great Haywood in Staffordshire. When we told him his land is on the proposed route of HS2, he was visibly shocked.
It's going to ruin the value of the farm for a start. And are we going to be paid the full agricultural going rate of today's market, or is it going to be on a compulsory purchase?
Great Haywood is no stranger to railway traffic. Passenger services already fly past here every half hour. And others in the local pub say the prospect of 200-mile-an-hour trains running close by can only be a good thing.
There's no point in criticising rail lines and rail times, but not putting in any infrastructure in. It might bring some employment to the area, which would be absolutely fantastic.
It's not close to the village. It's going to affect everybody, as people are going to have to up sticks and go. But yeah, I must admit, I think it's a good idea.
On the edge of Great Haywood, the 500-year-old Shugborough estate, once belonging to the bishops and later the Earls of Lichfield. Today it's a country park and hall owned by the National Trust and looked after by Staffordshire County Council. HS2 will pass about a kilometre to the north of the estate. This afternoon, Staffordshire County Council said, "As a county council, we're determined to work with the communities, the government and HS2 to ensure we get the best outcome possible for Staffordshire residents, as we have done with Phase 1. While we've now all seen the route today, it's too early to assess the full impact until we look at the proposals in much greater detail." Further south in Staffordshire, just outside Tamworth, lies Alvercote Wood. There have been trees here for around 1,000 years. Owner Stephen Briggs bought the land to create a woodland refuge for wildlife around the town, but with HS2 passing close by, he says many species will be badly affected and some of the woodland could die off altogether.